On this episode of China Uncensored, who wins Brexit? Hi, welcome to China Uncensored. I'm your host, Chris Chappell. You know, I'm a busy man. That's why I like portmanteaus. Things are so much easier to understand when they're one word, like brunch or Sharknado. And most recently, Brexit. Yes, the UK narrowly voted in a nationwide SurveyMonkey poll to leave the European Union, which, to use the traditional English vernacular, didn't quite go as planned. So yes, Brexit may have cost us all a bit of pocket change. But really, who's the Brinner in all this? And who's the bruiser? Besides Britain, of course. China. China just hit the propaganda jackpot. As Quartz puts it, Brexit gives China's Communist Party concrete evidence that democracy can be catastrophic. Chinese state-run media is eating it up.
英国决定退出欧盟，犹如一颗炸弹，令欧盟内部地动山摇。
One professor at Renmin University of China said democracy is a game that was kidnapped by populism and resulted in tragedy. And you can imagine what tragedies would befall China if people there got to vote. And it's a good thing for the Chinese regime that Brexit has become such a propaganda boon, because in every other respect, Brexit is a disaster for China. Well, maybe not the Chinese stock market. That's actually gone up since Brexit. But that's only because China's central bank poured billions of yuan into the market since the vote. And that kind of top-down benevolence just doesn't happen in a democracy. But unfortunately for the Chinese regime, Brexit has foiled their long-term plans for infiltrating Europe. China has invested heavily in the United Kingdom.
Britain is currently China's top destination when it comes to investing in Europe. 20% of all Chinese foreign direct investment in Europe goes to the UK.
And the British government knew which side its biscuits were buttered on.
The United Kingdom has made no secret of the fact it wants to strengthen ties with China.
And that's thanks largely to soon-to-be former Prime Minister David Cameron. He was the first head of state in the European Union to publicly push for a free trade deal between the EU and China. Yeah, the Chinese regime got in good with Cameron. They even made plans to build a bunch of nuclear reactors in England. It was part of the so-called golden era of China-UK relations.
I think this is going to be a very important moment for British-Chinese relations, which are in a very good state, something of a golden era in our relationship.
I mean, it can really only go up since the Opium Wars. But anyway, under Prime Minister Cameron, the UK was the first EU member that wanted to give China full market economy status. That would have made it harder for the EU to impose tariffs on cheap Chinese goods that flood the European market. But that's all likely to change thanks to Brexit. That's partly because other powerful members of the EU don't have such a cozy relationship with China. Germany's economy minister recently said Germany needs to take an aggressive position against China. China is already in an economic slump, with growth at a record low of no one really believes their GDP data anymore. So anything that could slow China's trade with Europe can now do real damage to China's economy. Even China's relationship with the UK itself might get a bit icy. This recent report to Westminster by activists and Conservative MPs called The Darkest Moment says the UK should distance itself from China. One of the report's authors, Dr. Christopher Hancock, said in a statement that British citizens can and must attempt to change their government's hitherto misguided response to China. So as David Cameron steps aside, it might be the hitherto golden era that takes a Brexit. Or is it Chexit? So what do you think about the impact of Brexit on China? Leave your comments below. Once again, I'm your host, Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching China Uncensored. On this episode of China Uncensored, Chinese smartphone knockoffs are taking a bite out of Apple's sales. War. It's like punching your boss at work. Fun to think about, but unadvisable to actually do.